Hey guys, how's it going today? Today I just wanted to do a video on Bitcoin. And I guess this could be kind of related to cryptocurrencies in general. I'm not going to go too much into the explanation of what Bitcoin is. If you guys want me to do a video on that, I could. I just want to specifically talk about Bitcoin as an investment and the future of Bitcoin. I want to preface this with, again, the assertion that I'm not giving you any advice what to do. This isn't investment advice. This is just purely my opinion, what I think is going to happen, and it's extremely risky, as I'm going to explain in a bit. And you should always do your due diligence before you invest, and consult a professional, even if you'd like as well. So with that aside, we've just seen a huge run up. I mean, this is Bitcoin since 2012, way back then. If we go to the 1 year here, you can just see even just in January 2017, we've almost, we've over 7 times our money since then. But the question is, what's going to happen in the future? When I look at investments, especially very speculative ones like Bitcoin, it's always risk versus reward, and I try to find the greatest divide by the two. What I mean by that is I'm looking for the highest return versus the lowest risk, right? So the greatest difference there is going to be how you're successful. And I'll do a video on that maybe in the future. I really think that's the secret of being a very successful investor and why I've been so successful. So personally, I think that even at these high levels, we're going to see Bitcoin be huge in the future. Potentially, as I'm going to show you a little bit later in this video, we might even see this thing hundreds of thousands in the mid 2020s, if not higher. So one of the main reasons behind that is the controlled supply of it. Whenever you're looking at anything, even stocks, it's supply versus demand. But the thing with Bitcoin is there is a finite supply. So 21 million is a number it's not expected to exceed that, and then it's going to be stopping. By the year, if I can find it here, it's 2100 sometime that we're actually going to see Bitcoin stop being able to mine. So at that time, it's going to be the supply is going to be capped, and then it's just demand. So when I see something like that, that is what makes Bitcoin so special. Unlike the US dollar, unlike the Canadian dollar, which is basically just diluted every year, and that's how you see you're losing of money and then inflation as a result. That's what makes Bitcoin different, is that it's going to be a finite supply, and if the demand increases, well, what's going to happen? The value is just going to continue to increase. So some other reasons that we need to look at is, well, why would demand increase? As of now, it's not really accepted in many places. It's very speculative. It's really nothing, right? It's not backed by anything. It's not tangible. However, it's arguable that money really isn't tangible either. It's not backed by gold in the United States and Canada. Money is simply created out of thin air via the banks. So there's really nothing tangible there, but you can still at least get your hands on some. So what are some of the demand factors that I'm looking at? Well, this one is one of the biggest ones I've seen lately, is that the markets, exchange-traded funds, I could do a video on that. If you guys don't know what that is, just put a comment down below. But exchange-traded funds have been, they've tried to launch a couple ETFs on Bitcoin, but the exchanges, just like the banks, are kind of rejecting this notion at this time, which makes it a little bit dubious as well. We see Jamie Dimon in the States. He's been a proponent saying that this is a joke, it's worthless. But we've seen some headway. For example, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, this is in the United States, plans to launch futures market for this is huge. So if you look at the derivative markets, this might be a little beyond the scope of this channel, but again, I could explain this. Futures are huge. If you're going to see Bitcoin on the futures traded like other currencies, that's going to vastly increase the demand. I mean, you're going to see just hundreds of billions of dollars that could potentially be driven into Bitcoin. So that's one of the huge factors. And another one I see is businesses, companies. One of the biggest ones could be Amazon. Amazon has said at this time that it's not big enough for them to be really interested in, but in my opinion, I think they're going to accept it one of these days. Within the next 5 years, I think Amazon could be accepting it. And now we're actually seeing them buying domain names related to them. So they registered 3 new cryptocurrency related domains. Amazon Ethereum, AmazonCryptocurrency.com, AmazonCryptocurrencies.com, and they already own AmazonBitcoin.com. This doesn't necessarily mean anything, guys, but it's definitely a very positive sign. They could just be trying to buy these names up just so other companies can't get their hands in them and they kind of just sit on them. But in my opinion, I think Amazon will start accepting that. And then Amazon, how big Amazon is, wow. So right now we can't buy, but I mean, even we can actually. This is my next point here. This is one company, it's called Purse, and you can actually get 15% off. So basically what you do is you make a wish list, you upload it to this website, and then somebody else buys their order for you, and then you pay them in Bitcoin. And you can also take the other side of the transaction. And all this money is put in escrow with the Purse company, so it's safe that when you receive your goods, the Bitcoin is released and the other person gets their Bitcoin and whatnot. So even in the infinite stages right now of Bitcoin, we're seeing ways to buy, and the demand is so high. If you're wondering how you get this 15% off, it's because the demand is so high for Bitcoin that basically the people that are buying the orders are willing to take that hit just to get the Bitcoin, right? And there's even being prominent names that are now getting on the Bitcoin train here. Bill Gates, he's had a lot of good things to say about it. He's basically saying here in this interview that he had, I think I watched this one actually, that it's a lot cheaper. You don't have to be physically in the same place, and for large transactions, our typical currency right now is pretty inconvenient. And then when he delivered the closing keynote address, he made a comment that I agree with. In the future, financial transactions will eventually become digital, universal, and almost free, and that's basically Bitcoin. So, and we've also seen. I'm going to talk about Mark Cuban here. We've seen the banks basically bashing it because it's a huge threat to them, but we've also seen them behind the scenes buying up Bitcoin. And then Mark Cuban is one who's basically said it was the biggest bubble ever. And now he's pretty bullish on it now. I actually just watched a video the other day on CNBC where he's basically saying, well, he is actually explicitly stating that he's investing in Bitcoin. He won't say how much, but now even he's investing in it. If you look at, probably know who John McAfee is. He's the founder of the McAfee, I believe it's called, the antivirus software. So this one, I won't say this on air, but he's so confident in it. He's also, by the way, involved in mining Bitcoin. So I mean, he could be a little biased, but he actually has a bet with this guy that he thinks is going to be it's going to be 500K, and that's US dollars, within 3 years. So he has actually had a bet with this guy. He's been pretty explicit with his his predictions on Bitcoin. But this is just some of the people that I wanted to show you guys, give you a little bit of an insight into it. But like I said, the risk is huge. This thing could go to zero. I mean, there's no intrinsic value of it. It's highly speculative, so you should treat it as such. However, if you think it could be going to this level, and it's really hard to predict how hot, the greatest minds can't even predict it because there's no way of knowing what's going to happen. There's no way of knowing how much demand there's going to be. We have an idea of how much supply there's going to be, but we don't really know how much demand there's going to be. So it's kind of impossible to bet, or to know exactly what it's going to go to, right? So that's why the risk is so big, right? We also are going to see regulations come into many areas, and that's kind of affected already in China. We've seen some of that on the ICOs. Those are called the initial coin offerings, which is very similar to initial public offerings. I did a video on that if you guys want to watch it on what is a stock. So we've seen some of that, but it's really kind of hard to regulate Bitcoin. That's one of the good things about it. You might be able to regulate it on some of the exchanges where you buy it right now and such. But once you have that Bitcoin, especially if you have it in your own private little, wallet like a Trezor or whatever, um, it's kind of out of the government's eyes. So it's kind of hard for them to regulate. I don't see them being able to control it that much. I do see some measures that can be taken, but in terms of a high level of regulation like the currencies that we have right now, no, I don't see it. So when you look at the potential versus the risk, I think you'd have to be out of your mind not to put something in Bitcoin. And when I say something, my advice, and this is strictly my opinion, would be to put in what you can afford to lose. For me, I would like to get at least one Bitcoin and just have that and hold it. Because if I lose that money, it's not a big deal, right? It's already lost in my mind. And that's the mindset that I would take with Bitcoin, guys, because the risk is huge, right? But the reward is huge as well. So I'd like to know your guys' opinions. So feel free to leave a comment down below. If you have any questions or you want me to make a video on anything else, leave that comment down below as well. Anyway, have a great day, guys. Bye.